September 14th, 2024, Yaba, Lagos. Grace Okonkwo was crying again, and she didn't even realize it until a tear fell on the white wedding dress she was hemming. The fabric soaked it up like it was thirsty for her pain. 3 years. 3 years since the hospital. 3 years since the bleeding wouldn't stop. 3 years since the doctor said, "I'm sorry, there's no heartbeat," and her whole world ended at 4 months pregnant. 3 years since Samuel looked at her in that hospital bed and said, "Maybe this is for the best. I wasn't ready to be a father anyway." Then he walked out, didn't even wait for them to discharge her. She took a taxi home, bleeding and broken, and he'd already blocked her number. She'd named the baby anyway. Princess, a little girl who never got to breathe. "Grace, you're doing it again." She looked up. Her best friend Joy was standing there with a bag of Puff Puff and 2 bottles of Fanta, still wearing her nurse uniform from the hospital. "Sorry," Grace whispered, wiping her face. "I forgot what day it is." "No, you didn't," Joy said gently, pulling up a chair. "September 14th, the day you lost Princess. The day Samuel left. The day you stopped believing in love." Before Grace could respond, their other friend Mercy burst through the door of Stitch Perfect Boutique on Commercial Avenue, shaking water from her umbrella. "Ladies," Mercy announced, way too cheerful. "I did something. You're either going to thank me or kill me." Grace's stomach dropped. "What did you do?" Mercy held up her phone. "I registered you on Lagos Elite Connect. It's a proper matchmaking service. They verify jobs, no scammers, real dinner dates at nice places." "Mercy, I swear." "One date," both friends said together. Grace looked between them. These women had held her hair while she vomited from grief. They'd helped her open this shop. They'd never given up on her, even when she gave up on herself. "Fine," she whispered. "One date." But she had a plan. A test. She'd tell them she had a 5-year-old daughter. If they ran, she'd know before her heart got involved. Before anyone could hurt her again. That night in her small flat in Suralere, Grace sat on her bed holding a tiny pink onesie. She'd bought it when she was 3 months pregnant. The tag still said 0 to 3 months. "Princess," she whispered to the empty room. "Mama has to protect herself. I have to make sure they're real before I let them close." She opened the dating app and typed, "Single mother to a beautiful 5-year-old daughter named Princess. If you can't handle a ready-made family, don't waste my time." It was a lie, but it was also armor. And didn't she deserve protection? September 15th, 2024, Atten Cemetery, Lagos. David Adebayo knelt at his mother's grave with white roses, like he did every month. The headstone read, "Janet Adebayo, beloved mother, 1968 to 2013, she gave everything." "Mama," he said softly, "I think I'm ready to try again. There's this woman. Her name is Grace." The wind moved through the cemetery, and David smiled, pretending it was his mother answering. "I know what you're thinking, that I'm too careful, too afraid." He touched the headstone. "But Mama, what if I'm like him? What if I run when things get hard?" His father had walked out when David was 6. Said he wasn't ready to be a father. Said Janet had trapped him with a baby. David remembered his mother standing at the window, watching him drive away, one hand on her pregnant belly. She was carrying his sister then. Both of them died during that childbirth when David was 7. His mother had raised him alone after that. 3 jobs. Skipped meals so he could eat. The stress killed her. Massive heart attack at 45. Grace's profile says she has a daughter, David continued. 5 years old. A lot of men would run from that. "But Mama, I keep thinking about you. How you struggled alone. Doesn't a single mother deserve someone who'll stay?" What David didn't know was that someone was watching him from behind a tomb. Precious Okafor, his childhood friend, the woman who'd been in love with him for 18 years. She watched him kneel at his mother's grave, watched him place flowers so tenderly, and her chest ached. For 18 years she'd been there, held him when his mother died, helped him through university, celebrated every victory. For 18 years, he'd only seen her as a friend. Another one, she whispered bitterly. Another woman trying to trap him. She destroyed the others. The lawyer, Precious, told David she saw her with another man. The doctor, Precious, accidentally mentioned she was still texting her ex. The teacher, Precious, planted doubts about her money problems. This Grace would be no different. Precious would protect David from her too, because if she couldn't have him, she'd make sure he stayed free until he finally saw her. October 10th, 2024, Oriental Restaurant, Victoria Island ***. Grace arrived early, wearing an emerald green dress she designed herself. Her heart was pounding. She'd rehearsed this. Tell him about Princess. Watch his face change. Watch him make excuses to leave. Then she'd know. Grace! She looked up, and her breath stopped. David Adebayo was ordinary in the best way. Not handsome like a movie star, but real. Warm brown eyes, strong hands, a gentle smile that made her feel safe. David, she said, shaking his hand. They ordered. She got Chapman and grilled fish. He got fresh orange juice and jollof rice. For 20 minutes, they just talked. Easy, natural. He told her about his engineering projects. She told her about her boutique dreams. My mama used to say old ways have wisdom we've forgotten, David said when she mentioned loving Zobo. Used to. Grace caught it. His face changed. Old pain. She passed when I was 19. Heart attack. I'm so sorry. She raised me alone after my father left, he said quietly. It was hard. This was her moment. I understand, Grace said, her pulse racing. I'm raising my daughter alone too. Her father left. She waited. This was when they always changed. When interest became politeness. When dates ended early. But David didn't flinch. He leaned forward. How old is she? 5. Her name is Princess. Princess, he repeated softly, and something moved across his face. Pain. Memory. That's beautiful. Raising a child alone takes incredible strength. My mama did it. You must be an amazing mother. Grace's walls cracked. This wasn't disgust. This wasn't retreat. This was respect. Thank you, she whispered. They talked for 2 more hours. She forgot she was lying. She forgot this was a test. She forgot everything except how David listened like her words mattered. When they said goodbye outside, David held her hand a moment longer than necessary. I'd like to see you again, Grace. Both of you, actually. Maybe we could take Princess to the beach. Her throat went dry. She's with my aunt in Abuja. For school. Abuja? His eyebrows lifted. That's far for a 5-year-old. It's a good school, Grace said quickly. And my aunt loves her. David nodded slowly. Something unreadable in his eyes. Of course. When she comes back, I'd love to meet her. Driving home, Grace's hands shook on the wheel. She felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. And it terrified her. Over the next 12 weeks, Grace fell completely in love with David Adebayo. Their second date was a rooftop restaurant in Ikoyi. David told her about his dream of building affordable housing for single mothers. My mama died of a heart attack, he said softly. But really, she died of stress, of heartbreak, of carrying everything alone. If I can help even one woman not go through that. Grace reached across the table and held his hand. The gesture was automatic, and the warmth in her chest felt dangerously real. Their 5th date, David showed up at her boutique just to bring her lunch because she'd mentioned being too busy to eat. You don't have to take care of me, she said. I know, he replied. I want to. By week 10, Grace looked forward to his good morning texts, his random jokes, his thoughtful questions about her dreams. He sent her business articles, surprised her with her favorite chin-chin from the market, supported every idea she had. One night, Joy called. So, how's Mr. Perfect? He's too perfect, Joy, Grace admitted. That's the problem. How is that a problem? Because I lied. Grace sat up in bed. Every time he asks about Princess, every time he wants to meet her, every time he talks about being part of our lives, I'm lying to his face. Silence. Then, Grace, maybe it's time to tell him the truth. What truth? Hi, David, that daughter I told you about? She doesn't exist. I made her up to test you. Surprise. Grace. He'll leave, Joy. They all leave when things get complicated. David isn't Samuel. But that's what Grace had thought about Samuel, too. Before the miscarriage. Before he showed her who he really was when things got hard. Just give me more time, Grace whispered. Let me be sure he really loves me. Then I'll tell him everything. What Grace didn't know was that David was having the same conversation with his best friend Michael that night. "Brother, something isn't right," Michael said over beer at a bar in Lecky. "You've been seeing this woman for 3 months, and you still haven't met her daughter?" "She's in Abuja with her aunt," David explained, though it sounded weak even to him. "For school. For 3 months? What 5-year-old stays away from her mother that long?" David had noticed other things, too. Grace never took calls from teachers, never rushed home for bedtime. Her boutique had no signs of a child. No drawings, no toys, no photos. And her Instagram. He'd looked. 3 years of posts. Not one mention of a daughter. "Maybe she's just private," David said. "Or maybe she's lying," Michael said bluntly. "Your mama raised you better than to be played for a fool." That night, David did something he wasn't proud of. He went through Grace's entire social media history. Every post, every photo, every comment. He looked for any mention of Princess. School photos, birthday parties, anything, nothing. He sat on his bed, phone shaking in his hands. She was lying. But why? Instead of confronting her, David decided to wait. He wanted to give her chances to tell the truth on her own. And if she didn't, well, his father had taught him one thing. You can't build a future on lies. It was Precious who suggested the surprise party. "You've been seeing her for 3 months," Precious said over coffee, her voice sweet like poison. "Don't you think it's time to show her you're serious?" "I don't know," David said. "Throw her a party," Precious insisted. "Invite her friends, her clients, and invite her daughter. It's time you finally met Princess, right?" David slowly smiled. "That's actually a great idea." What Precious didn't say was that she'd already confirmed Princess didn't exist, and she'd been waiting 3 months to expose this lie in the most devastating way possible. Over the next 2 weeks, David planned everything. He rented Dream Garden Venue in Lecky, hired Grace's favorite photographer, ordered a beautiful cake, invited her friends Mercy and Joy, invited her clients, and then he commissioned something special, a custom gold necklace with Princess engraved on it, surrounded by small diamonds. "This is for her daughter," he told the jeweler. "I want her to know I'm ready to be a father to this child." What he didn't know was that the name on that necklace belonged to a baby who'd never been born. A baby who died 3 years ago in a hospital room that still haunted Grace's nightmares. December 2nd, 2024, Dream Garden, Lecky. Grace woke up to David's text. "Good morning, beautiful. Can't wait to see you tonight." She spent the morning finishing a wedding dress, barely noticing how Mercy and Joy kept giggling nervously. "What's with you two?" she asked. "Nothing," they said together, which meant something. "David texted us," Joy finally admitted. "He wants us all to meet at Dream Garden at 6 p.m. He said it's a surprise." A surprise. Grace's stomach fluttered. In 3 months, she'd fallen completely in love with David. But she still hadn't told him the truth about Princess. "Once I'm sure," she kept telling herself, "then I'll tell him everything." That evening, she wore a royal blue dress she designed herself. When she arrived at Dream Garden, her breath caught. The venue looked like something from a fairy tale. String lights hung like stars. Jasmine and roses filled the air. And in the center stood David in a white senator outfit, looking perfect. "Surprise," he said softly, and for a moment everything was perfect. Then she saw the crowd. Mercy and Joy looking guilty. Her clients watching. The photographer. Everyone staring at her with uncertain smiles. "David, what is this?" she asked. "It's for you," he said, taking her hand. "I wanted to show you how serious I am about us." He gestured to tables full of her favorite food. A beautiful cake. Everything perfect. "But that's not all," David said, pulling out a small box. "I know we've only been together 3 months, but I know what I want. And I want you. All of you." Grace's heart hammered. This was it. Proof he loved her. After this, she'd tell him everything. David opened the box. A gold necklace. The name Princess catching the light and sparkling. "For your daughter," he said softly. "I want her to know I'm ready to be part of her life. That I accept both of you completely." The garden tilted. Grace stared at the necklace. At the name of her dead baby engraved in gold. At this beautiful lie wrapped around this beautiful moment. Her throat closed. "David," Wait, a voice cut through like a knife. Precious stepped out of the shadows, phone held high. She wore a red dress. Her smile was poison. Before you accept that gift, Kyoma, everyone here should hear the truth. Precious. David frowned. What are you doing here? Protecting you, Precious said. Showing you who this woman really is. She tapped her phone. Suddenly audio filled the garden. Grace's voice, recorded weeks ago. Can you believe it's working? These men fall for the single mother story. Mercy's voice, laughing. Grace, you're terrible. What if one of them actually? Joy's voice, giggling. Actually what? Falls in love. That's the point. I need to know if they'll accept me with baggage before I waste my time. Gracie's voice. But lying about a whole child, though. Mercy again, laughing. It's a test, not a lie. These foolish men need to prove they're worthy first. Gracie's voice. The recording ended. Silence followed, so loud it hurt. Grace watched understanding spread across every face. Her clients gasped. Mercy and Joy looked stricken, realizing their casual conversation had become a weapon. But Grace only looked at David. His face had gone completely still. Not angry, just empty. The necklace box snapped closed in his hand. The sound was like a heart breaking. David, Grace whispered, stepping toward him. Please let me explain. Explain what? His voice was so quiet. Explain how you've been lying to me for 3 months. How there is no princess. Tears ran down her face. There was a princess. 3 years ago I was pregnant and I lost her and my boyfriend left me in. And you thought the best way to heal was to lie to me. David's composure cracked. Pain flooded his face. To test me like I was some experiment. I was scared. Grace sobbed. I was terrified you'd hurt me like Samuel did. So you hurt me first. David looked at the necklace box. I had this made with her name on it. The daughter you told me about. The daughter I was ready to love. David, do you know what this feels like? He finally looked at her, and the pain in his eyes stopped her breath. My father walked out on my mother using a child as an excuse. He said she trapped him with pregnancy. My whole life I've been terrified of becoming him, of abandoning someone. When you told me you had a daughter, I thought this was my chance to be different, to be the man my mother needed and never had. I know. I'm sorry. You made me believe I was honoring my mother's memory. His voice broke, that I was being the good guy, and all along it was just a test. I was just a test. No. Grace reached for him, but he stepped back. You weren't just a test. I fell in love with you. Everything else was real. Was it? David laughed bitterly. How do I know? How do I know anything about you is real? He looked around at the garden he prepared so carefully. At the cake, the flowers, the guests watching this private devastation. He looked at the necklace box one last time, then gently set it on the table. I'm sorry about your baby, he said quietly. I'm sorry you went through that. But Grace, I can't do this. I can't build a future with someone who doesn't trust me with the truth. He walked away, just like that. No shouting, no drama, just quiet, devastating finality. Grace stood frozen in the center of the garden, surrounded by pitying looks and disappointed faces. Mercy and Joy ran to her, but she couldn't hear them. She could only stare at the necklace on the table. The name Princess catching the fairy lights. The name of her daughter who never breathed. The name she'd turned into a weapon. The name that just destroyed the only man she'd loved since Samuel broke her. # Part 7. 40 Days in the Desert. *** Day 1. December 3 ***. Grace didn't open her boutique. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, still wearing her blue dress from the party. Her phone buzzed with messages. She didn't read them. *** Day 5, December 7 ***. Joy and Mercy forced their way into her apartment. They found her sitting on the floor surrounded by tissues, holding the pink Odyssey. Grace, you need to eat, Joy begged. I destroyed him, Grace whispered. I destroyed the only good thing I've had since Princess died. *** Day 12, December 14 ***. Grace finally opened her boutique. A client came to pick up her wedding dress. When she saw Grace's face, She asked, "Are you okay?" Grace tried to say yes, but instead she started crying. She cried so hard the client had to help her sit down. Day 18. December 20. Mosi dragged Grace to a grief counseling session at a church in Yaba. "My name is Grace," she said when it was her turn to speak. "And 3 years ago I lost my baby at 4 months pregnant. Her name was Princess, and I've been using her name as a weapon ever since." She told them everything. The miscarriage, Samuel leaving, the lie she told David, the party, the necklace. "I turned my daughter's memory into a test," she sobbed, "and I destroyed a good man in the process." An older woman in the circle reached over and held her hand. "Grief makes us do things we never thought we'd do," she said gently. "But lying about a child, that's not grief anymore. That's fear. And fear destroys everything it touches." Day 25, December 27th. Grace went to the cemetery where she'd buried the ultrasound picture of Princess 3 years ago. It wasn't a proper grave, just a small marker under a tree that the cemetery let her place. She knelt there with white roses. "Princess," she whispered, "Mama is so sorry. I used your name as a weapon. I turned you into a lie, and I hurt someone who would have loved you if you were here." The wind moved through the trees, and Grace felt it on her wet face. "I need to fix this," she said. "I don't know if David will ever forgive me, but I need to try. For you, for him, for me." Day 30, January 1st, 2025 ***. David stood at his mother's grave, like he did every month. But this time felt different. "Mama," he said quietly, "I know you told me to forgive people. But how do I forgive someone who made me feel like everything was a lie?" He'd been miserable for a month. He went to work, came home, stayed at Walls. His friend Michael kept inviting him out, but David always said no. "The thing is, Mama," David continued, "I keep thinking about what Grace said. About being scared. About her boyfriend leaving her when she lost the baby. And I keep thinking, isn't that what I did too? Didn't I leave her when things got hard?" The wind picked up, and David closed his eyes. "She lied because she was scared I'd leave. And then I left because she lied. So in the end, didn't I prove her right?" Day 35, January 6. Precious showed up at David's flat in Ikeja. "I brought food," she said, holding up bags from his favorite restaurant. They sat in his living room eating in silence. Finally, Precious said, "You're still thinking about her." "Precious, I was trying to protect you," she interrupted. "I was trying to show you she wasn't good enough for you." "You humiliated her in front of everyone," David said quietly. "You recorded private conversations and played them at a party. That wasn't protection, Precious. That was cruelty." Precious's face changed. "I did it because I love you. I've loved you for 18 years and you've never seen me." The words hung in the air like smoke. "I know," David said softly. "I've always known, Precious. But I can't love you that way. I've tried to see you like that. But I can't. You're my friend. My sister. But that's all." Tears ran down Precious's face. "So you'll forgive her for lying, but you can't forgive me for loving you." "I'm not sure I can forgive either of you," David admitted. "But Precious, what you did, that wasn't love. Love doesn't destroy people to possess them." Precious left without another word. Day 40, January 11 ***. Grace stood outside David's office building in Marina. She'd been standing there for an hour, trying to find courage. Finally, she walked in. The receptionist called up to his office. 5 minutes later, David came down. When he saw her, his face didn't change, but his eyes did. Something moved in them, something that might have been pain or might have been hope. "Grace," he said. "I brought you something," she said, holding out a folder. David took it, confused. Inside were papers, medical records from Lagos General Hospital, dated September 14, 2021. Records of a miscarriage at 16-week gestation. Records of hemorrhaging. Records of emotional trauma counseling for the months after. There was also an ultrasound photo. A tiny baby, curled up like a question mark. Written at the bottom in Grace's handwriting, Princess Okonkwo. Forever loved. Never forgotten. She was real, Grace whispered. The baby was real. The grief was real. The fear that made me lie was real. Only the lie was fake. David stayed at the ultrasound, his hands trembling. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Grace continued. I'm not even asking you to talk to me again. I just needed you to know that I didn't make Princess up for fun. I didn't create her to manipulate you. She existed. She died. And I've been so broken by losing her that I turned her memory into armor. Grace! You were right to walk away, she said, tears streaming down her face. You were right about everything. I should have trusted you with the truth. But I was so scared of being hurt again that I hurt you first. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She turned to leave. Wait, David said. She stopped but didn't turn around. I'm sorry too, he said quietly. I'm sorry your boyfriend left you when you needed him most. I'm sorry you lost your daughter. And I'm sorry that I walked away from you at that party the same way he walked away from you at the hospital. Because in the end, didn't I just prove your test right? Grace turned around, her face wet with tears. You deserve better than what I gave you, David continued. You deserved honesty. But you also deserved someone who'd fight for you instead of walking away the moment things got complicated. My mother always said forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to love anyway. He held up the ultrasound photo. Can we start over? He asked. No lies this time. No tests. Just two broken people trying to be honest with each other. Grace couldn't speak. She could only nod. David stepped closer. Tell me about her. Tell me about Princess. The real Princess. Not the one you made up. The one you lost. And standing there in the lobby of his office building with people walking around them and the Lagos traffic honking outside, Grace finally told the truth. She told him about buying the Odyssey when she was 3 months along, about feeling the first flutter of movement, about Samuel's face when the bleeding started, about the hospital bathroom where she delivered her daughter's tiny body, alone because Samuel had already left, about naming her Princess because she'd wanted her daughter to know she was royalty even if she never took a breath, about keeping the ultrasound picture under her pillow for a year, about building her boutique as a distraction from grief, about being terrified that any man she loved would leave her the way Samuel did. David listened to everything, and when she finished, he pulled her into his arms and held her while she cried. I'm here, he whispered. I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. Epilogue. 1 year later. January the 11th, 2026. Dream Garden, Lekki ***. The same venue. The same fairy lights. The same jasmine and roses. But this time, Grace knew what was coming. David had planned another party, but this time he'd told her about it. This time there were no secrets. I wanted to redo that night, he'd explained. I wanted to replace the bad memory with a good one. So here they were, Mercy and Joy, Michael and his wife, Grace's clients, David's co-workers, even Precious, who'd apologized to them both and was now in therapy working through her own issues. But this time, when David pulled out a box, it wasn't a necklace. Grace Okonkwo, he said, getting down on one knee, you taught me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest, even when honesty is scary. Even when the truth might push people away. You taught me that broken people can heal together instead of breaking each other more. He opened the box. A diamond ring sparkled in the fairy lights. Will you marry me? Grace looked at the ring, then at David, then at her friends who were crying, then back at David. On one condition, she said. David's face flickered with worry. When we have children, Grace continued, if we have a daughter, I want to name her Princess. The name I gave my first baby. The name that brought us together, broke us apart, and somehow brought us back, because she deserved to be remembered not as a lie, but as love. David stood up, tears running down his face. Yes, he whispered. Yes to everything. He slipped the ring on her finger, and everyone cheered. But the loudest cheer came from the wind moving through the trees, sounding like the laugh of a little girl who never got to grow up but who somehow still brought her mother a second chance at love. Author's note: this story is about grief, lies, forgiveness, and second chances. If you've ever been so hurt that you built walls around your heart, if you've ever lied because you were terrified of being hurt again, if you've ever walked away from someone instead of fighting for them, this story is for you. Asterisk, was Grace wrong to lie? Was David wrong to walk away? Was Precious wrong to expose the truth? Asterisk. Comment below. Do you think broken people can heal together, or do they just break each other more?